I'm going to take a little bit of detour and then come back to two more scenarios. But I want to get into a little bit more brass tacks of go to market. And Vinod, I think you and I, when we were kind of prepping for the pod, right? Um, I think now we have those case studies coming out of India where kind of US India cross border startups are now seeing kind of early successes, right? In terms of various go to market approaches in the US. And I think you highlighted SuperOps, Rocketlane, and Spendflo, right, as three companies which are actually doing well and kind of making really good inroads into the US. But everyone has a very different approach, right? And I felt that this is going to be really contrasting these approaches would be really, really helpful for cross-border founders out there, right? So could you spend like a couple of minutes on kind of each of these? See, and then you as an observer, what are you seeing in terms of what is working, right? Like why have they gone for these approaches, and what can people kind of derive as insights and learnings out of this?
Someone decent. So first disclaimer is three founders, three very good friends. I know them personally. None of this is driven by what I might know about the company. This is me looking outside in,
Yeah.
right? And that's just want to be very clear. That's the hat I've put on. So let's look at these companies, right? Someone asked me recently, what do the great founders have in common? I think great founders have one thing in common. Early on in their life, they either know exactly what their go-to-market is or they figure it out very early, right? Founders who go with the vague notion of, I'm better than Salesforce. So let's say you're doing sales CRM. So the VP of sales should pick me over Salesforce. That's a very, very vague understanding of who your buyer is, why they should buy you. The reason I'm saying this is, look at these three companies, SuperOps, with Arvind, Shri with Rocketlane, and then Rajiv with Spendflo, right? Look at these three companies, very, very different companies, very different spaces, okay? But as I thread together what they've done well early, you can kind of figure out what early stage founders and companies look like, which gives you some sight that this might be successful. Now, whether the TAM is, whether they're going to be at 100 million revenue, a billion, I don't know, right? So let's just talk about early success, which is, zero revenue to PMF to 10 million ARR. And then, each stage, there's a different set of things you need to do to succeed. So let's start with maybe Arvind at SuperOps, right? There's a few superpowers that SuperOps had, right? The founder understands performance marketing like in his sleep, right? Has picked an unsexy space, MSP. Like most people don't know the full form of MSP, and the ones who do don't know the size of that market, right? So what has he done? He's taken an unsexy market, large incumbent, correct? Huge TAM, gone super deep, correct? Pick the lower end of that market and said, I'm going to do performance marketing, get in front of them, build a better product, like faster, better, cheaper. Clayton Christensen's typical disruption, right? It's a Freshworks model that Freshworks has done better. Gone back to what he knows really, really well. All these years of experience with Zoho and building his own startup and Freshworks, to go back to say, I know these things really well, right? Let me solve for that in this space. Fabulous sort of awareness of go-to-market. What's the route channel preference, performance marketing, who are the channel partners, for example, who the incumbent is, what's the competitive differentiation? Very, very clear, right? And I love it, right? There's a reason that company is growing fast, okay? Let's go to Rocketlane. Very early awareness of who they are solving for. I told you earlier in the pod, each software needs to have an owner, someone who says, this is my software. Not this is also software I can use, very different, correct? If you ask a VP of sales or customer success, if you ask a customer success leader, show me what you use, they're going to pick up whatever platform is, we know the customer success platform, right? They'll proudly demonstrate that software, right? I once remember we had, I think the CMO of, I think it was HDFC Bank in India, Karthik Jain. He went up on stage at a Microsoft event and they asked him about customer experience. I kid you not, C-suite person picks up the CloudCherry dashboard, runs a demo. This is how I use my stuff. And I was like, this has never happened before, right? Usually C-suite doesn't do product demos on his own. This is not because I asked him. I don't think I had the agency to ask him. But when someone asked him about customer experience, he wanted to show the data-driven approach to customer experience, he demoed the product, right? Why am I telling you this? He believed that this was his product. His priority was customer experience, and this is what helped him achieve it. So you go back to early creation of the community, right? The pre-flight community, pure understanding of the delivery PS teams are the ones that use it, right? Why not an Asana? Simple here. So you show this person a generic project management tool, right? Or a project, whatever, task management tool. And you show organization like, you know what? In theory, can this morph into this? Yes. In practice, no. I'm not here to run a science experiment, right? I'm here to deliver, I'm just saying 50 million of ARR or 20 million of ARR every year. I need to succeed in my job. I need all my teams to be following standard software, standard process, standard whatever. So ICP understanding is superlative. Community creation around that ICP is very good, correct? Sticking to solving all problems that buyer may, like I would like to think I've contributed to the product roadmap by saying, why don't you also build this? So which means you take an ICP, one buyer, and say, I'm going to solve all your problems, right? Everything that it takes for you to succeed is within my realm of responsibilities, which means there may be large vendors who also sell some product to this person. But if you create a specialist module for this person of that large vendor, you can pick 50 million of their TAM and append it to this buyer, right? That's why I'm very, very excited about where that company can go, right? Third, you see Spendflo. I think, to the best of my knowledge, they realized that it's a two-in-a-box buying decision, right? You've got finance and you've got functional leader, IT, whatever, whoever's responsible for consolidation of systems that you use. So I saw a LinkedIn post, again, that's why I said outside in, that they did 35 exec sit-down roundtables last year, right? That is 1 in 10 days, right? Approximately, if you see the year. I think that is spectacular. Once in 10 days, the founders are sitting in a roundtable. Look at this go-to-market. Nothing to do with performance marketing. It's not that they're not doing. I'm sure they're doing other channels too. But what am I seeing from the outside? We may do performance marketing, we may know our ICP well, but there's a nuance there. I need to bring these sort of different people in the same room, right? CFO has a different incentive structure. Maybe the head of IT has a different incentive structure. I need to bring these people together in an environment where my evangelists are there, talk to them about what's important. They're not going to see a banner ad for reduce your, optimize your spend, or maybe they do, I don't know. But I'm seeing one go-to-market approach which is radically different from the other two that seems to be working really, really well, right? And I will add one thing to it. That's probably one of the most persistent founders I've ever met. I know him personally, and 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 forget all the science of what you do. That he needed something from me. I won't get into the context of it for his business. Okay, and have never had someone more doggedly and persistently follow up with me using every trick in the book in a non-recorded environment. I will tell it all legit tricks, of course. But I love that. Like great founders are just persistent. Like they don't give up, right? So you see three different companies, three different segments, but all of them had something foundational. One understood you needed to get constituents together and get them to talk. One understood exact buyer and then said, I'm going to solve for everything for that buyer and increase my time along the way, right? Create a community around it. One understood a segment that is underserved with a large incumbent that is ready to be disrupted. Use the performance marketing and channel partner route to really go deep in and just be a typical disruptor in a space. And very, very radically different go-to-market models, but all of them worthy of emulation. The founder superpower is what is relevant to you. If you're going to the high end of enterprise and need CIOs of Fortune 100 banks and you're optimizing on your performance marketing, you're probably spending your time in the wrong place, right? That's my takeaway from these very different use cases.
And almost these three case studies are sort of taking me back to what you said right at the beginning of the pod, which is the importance of the ICP, figuring out the customer. I think that seems to be almost the common thread across these three companies, that razor sharp identification of the ICP, understanding what problem you're solving, and then automatically I think the things start lining up, because then you know how to reach out to them, to what language, and to sort of communicate them with, or how to position themselves. At least, in fact, I mean, just to give us, I have recorded a podcast with Nivas, who's the head of marketing at Spendflo, because personally, I found the whole kind of using curated events to drive go to market. I've not seen any startup do it this way. They are fabulous,
Right? Exactly. But the founder is, I'm sure that when they started out,
Yeah.
they didn't think curated events is going to be the way out, right?
Yeah.
They tried a few experiments,
Yeah.
understood what the ROI of one was, right?
Yeah.
The founder always needs to have a learner's mindset,
Yeah.
right? And then, I mean, double down is an understatement. 35 curated roundtables in a year is not called doubling down. There's a number that's bigger than doubling down, right? And I love it. I think that's what great founders do.
And it's a lot of work. I mean, the kind of nuances that came out in that discussion. So this is not low-hanging fruit GTM. This is really grinding it out, but because you know who your customer is. So you then kind of start iterating on one channel, and then it starts working well.
Exactly. Look. My dog. Obviously, you can see is uh, at the back, and she's motivated by three things only. One is treats, food. Next is belly rubs, and third is a walk. Right? If I throw any other incentive towards her, I mean, if I offer to read her poetry, I'm sure she'd be like, "Yeah, good for you, dude." Like, move on. You've got to understand that at a primal level, all human beings are driven by a certain set of incentives, either personal or professional, right? You've got to, the heart of good go-to-market is to appeal to what moves you, not why I believe you should be moved, right? Um, Conviction shouldn't be the wrong thing. That's really the heart of all GTM. Then you got to find a method around it. It could be performance marketing, it could be curated roundtables, it could be succeed in your role as the delivery person, whatever it is. But that's what you need to do. That's what great companies are built on.